nobody has prepared me for what postpartum really looks like. C-section moms, we don't get physical therapy. We don't get any type of follow-up support. Understanding that my journey is my journey and I can't force it to look like somebody else's. Don't try to run your baby like you run your business.
We do it all. Rise up strong even when we fall. Dreams in our hands, love in our hearts. This is where the journey starts.
Hey everyone, welcome to Baby Bumpin' Business, a podcast dedicated to honest, inspiring conversations about the intersection of motherhood, pregnancy, and entrepreneurship in the creative world. I am your host, Bee Trofort-Wilson, and today's guest, we have Koereyelle, a happily married mother of two, soon to be three, Atlanta-based realtor and founder of Elevate Travel, a boutique travel agency dedicated to helping Black women transform their love for travel into profitable businesses. She also hosts the award-winning podcast, Girl Stop Playing Podcast, empowering women to make money and get the honey. Hey, Koereyelle.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here and I'm so proud of you for doing this, Bree. So thank you for the invitation.
Thank you, honey. So we go way back from when you were single to now married to now about to be mother of three. And before, when you first got pregnant, can you just go into detail about where you were in your entrepreneurship journey? Because you're a serial entrepreneur. You've worn many hats within your career. So at the start of your motherhood journey, where were you?
I was devastated. I was old as hell, so I was 34. There was no excuse for me to feel the way that I felt when I found out I was pregnant for the first time, except for the fact that I had just got engaged. So I got engaged in April, found out I was pregnant in June. And between April and June, we had like planned our whole wedding. Like we had set a date. We had done all of the things and I had all of these plans. And so I honestly felt like being pregnant kind of messed up my plans. So I didn't react the way that I always felt like I would react. Like I would just be so excited and oh my God, because I knew that I wanted to be a mother. But I honestly was just focused on the things that I was losing or the way that my plans were going to have to pivot. So I was very sad, honestly. I was super sad when I found out I was pregnant. I won't say that I felt like my business was going to necessarily take a hit. I was just being selfish and thinking about my personal life. But at the time, I was running multiple businesses. As you said, I've been a serial entrepreneur for the last decade. I had a full-fledged women's entrepreneurship online membership that I had started that had hundreds of members. I had a full team, a staff of Black women that were working alongside me. And so the baby was just not on my bingo card for that year. So I was selfishly disappointed when I found out I was pregnant. And I feel so bad saying that, but it's the truth.
So how was that pregnancy journey with you again, balancing all of those businesses, having a team beside you, and knowing that you were about to step into this journey that you sounds like you weren't necessarily prepared for? So how did that affect your mindset going into your businesses, and how did you pivot during your pregnancy?
I don't think that I did a good job pivoting. I think that because I wasn't quote unquote ready, I had not thought about, and me and you have had this conversation offline about like maternity leave. What does that look like for an entrepreneur? It's literally non-existent. So not that everybody plans their pregnancy and they know exactly when they're going to get pregnant, but it truly was not on my bingo card. And so I had not thought about what maternity leave was going to look like. I have trust issues. So the thought of me like leaving my business in the hands of what, was probably a capable team, that was like scary for me. And so I didn't know. I did not know what my plans were. I came up with this idea to develop a digital product, and I was just going to focus on selling that digital product up until the time that I actually had the baby so that, that could be like my maternity leave money, so to speak, since I didn't want to have to, get back to work and be the face of the brand that I was so accustomed to being. But honestly, I did not have a plan, and I hate that for us. I hate that for entrepreneurs. Most of us aren't sitting down like writing Dear Diary, I'm gonna get pregnant tomorrow, and then we have this whole plan and it works out that way. Like most of us not necessarily accidentally get pregnant, but we don't have it all mapped out. And when it comes to entrepreneurs, we are left on our own and to our own devices to kind of figure it out. So that was definitely a challenge for me for sure.
Yeah, because I remember even reaching out to you asking about like health insurance for maternity and what were your suggestions. And you were like, girl, my man got insurance. And I was like, okay, my man did it. So, I think those are those conversations that as entrepreneurs, we don't have and that we're not really prepared for when we talk about motherhood, when we talk about this next chapter, because this is a new chapter in our businesses that we don't really consider. We don't really consider what that looks like. And it's, like you said, maternity leave, me and you had so many conversations about what that looks like and how is that supposed to look. But there's no blueprint for entrepreneurs. There's no guide of here's what you need to do, and here's how to plan for maternity leave, and here's how to get paid during maternity leave without actually working. Where other countries they provide that, we don't have that here. And I feel
No.
like it does do us such a disservice as entrepreneurs. But then it's also how can we plan ahead, or how can we prepare? And even my story with me being pregnant now, I'm actively working towards maternity leave now, and it's like that adds more stress during the pregnancy journey that people don't often talk about.
Yeah, it's tough. I tell you, there's all that discourse. I don't see it so much now, but for the past several years, there was so much conversation around like not working corporate jobs and, everybody should be an entrepreneur and start a business. And baby, when I tell you, I was grateful for my man's corporate job. I was grateful for those benefits. I was grateful for those consistent, steady, predictable paychecks, like all of that stuff that we kind of shamed. It's like, no, in the real world, when real life happens, there are certain things that just make it a little easier. And so I definitely, like, my heart goes out for people who have two entrepreneurs, in the household, because traditionally entrepreneurs don't have insurance. That's not an expense that we are usually willing to pay unless we really, really need it. And so, to your point, these are definitely conversations that need to be had, and like a stigma that needs to be, taken away, because sometimes getting a job that comes along with benefits is not the worst idea in the world, especially when you are in this phase of your life when it comes to like, bringing children into the world, because insurance is expensive.
I was like, listen, there's no reason why it's this expensive, and I understand why people been moving overseas
Yep.
because. So I know about your first pregnancy and your first delivery and how traumatic that was, and I'm not gonna lie, girl, that made my clock move a little bit. I was like, I could wait a little bit longer because these stories are not cute. And I don't know how much you want to go into detail into that, but
I
going
think
through
I'm
such
over
a
it now. I can talk
yeah,
about it now without like
uh,
crying.
okay, so with it being such a traumatic experience, how did that shape you going back into the business world?
So I don't know. Um, I think I'm like an avoider when they talk about like, what is it called? I'm like a avoidant personality type. Like I avoid the pain. I'm gonna like compartmentalize and put that over here and then try to just focus my energy over here. So I think that even though I was very traumatized from my birth not going the way that I wanted to, I don't think that I necessarily brought that into business with me. What did it for me, I feel like, was the lack of independence that I had once I became a mother. And Bree, I know you said that my story like made you push things back, but I feel like I don't want to say too much because you about to be a first time mom. Like I don't want to traumatize you all over again. But and hopefully this will not be your experience. And this is why I'm honest about my experience, because I feel like people aren't talking about these things. And then when you go
Exactly.
through it, you think you're crazy or you think something's wrong with you. And that's how I felt. I felt like nobody had prepared me for what postpartum really looks like. And I'm not just saying postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, but everybody goes through postpartum. It's literally the period after the fourth trimester, the period after
Right.
you give birth is your postpartum period. And it affects us all differently. I lost my independence in my postpartum. I have really convinced myself throughout my pregnancy that once I have this baby, I'm gonna just get back to being cold with a baby. And that is not at all what happened. That old life was literally gone, burned down in flames. Like it is, I am not her anymore. I cannot try to get back. I have to become whatever that next season calls me to become. And I was so used to doing what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it, leaving the house when I wanted to leave, coming back when I wanted to come back, leaving town, like being truly independent, that motherhood really sat me down. And not only did it sit me down, it really made me I feel like it took me off of my A game when it comes to business and entrepreneurship. I had a lot of guy friends at the time who were also entrepreneurs, and I felt like this is something women don't talk about. Like a man can have a baby, and one of my good guy friends at the time, his wife was pregnant at the same time as me. So seeing him still be able to like just keep going and build his business just grew and grew and grew while I had to sit down and really my business took a backseat to my baby. I felt some type of way about that. And I think that was the bigger challenge was like, I can't move the way that I wanted to move. I can't work nonstop around the clock like I really wanted to because I had to mom around the clock. And I never felt like, dang, I wish this baby would go away. Like I was never mad at my baby, but I definitely mourned my old life. Like I definitely mourned my freedom. I definitely mourned just being able to move that I wanted, in the way that I wanted to move. So I don't know that the birth necessarily had that big of an impact, but like the baby, like the responsibility, the 24/7 responsibility of this child definitely became my priority. And that is just something that I was not prepared for. And I don't know if you can be prepared for it, but I was not.
Yeah, I was doing some research, and there's a I forgot, it's an African country. It's not a country. There's a place in Africa where when a woman drops their first blood before going into labor, where they have a ceremony and they basically say that they're mourning the loss of who you were before. And when I read into that, I was like, we really do not talk about that. And like you said, a lot of men, they can become fathers, but nothing really changes for them. But when it comes to women, we're the ones that are mourning what we're doing, and it like even like right now in my process, everyone's telling me like, so are you still going to travel for work? And are you going to sit down? And are you going to do this? And are you going to do that? And I'm like, granted, I don't know what this is going to look like. I don't know what that transition period is going to look like, but I know that's going to be a hard part of not being able to be independent. Like you said, like even during this pregnancy journey and having my team saying, sit down, we'll set up everything. I hate that. Like, I'm not handicapped. I just have a baby growing inside me. But the way that society looks at you as you're becoming a mother and going through this process, and it's like, I'm not handicapped and losing that independence, like you say, I think that's something that a lot of women do not talk about. And especially when now your identity has become mother over business owner. Your identity is now mother over wife. It's all these different things where mother is now taking that first seat. And it's like, we don't regret it, or we love the child, but it's like that identity crisis in that process. So what were some things that you did to help battle that and to battle that process for you with that identity crisis?
Girl, got a therapist. I remember crying in my closet. Like I am, like I said, I'm an avoidant. I have an avoidant personality type. Attachment style. That's what I was trying to think about. So the attachment styles theory, I am an avoidant attachment style. So I will avoid the conversation. I will avoid feeling the emotions. I will avoid as much as I possibly can, but I could not avoid it. And I would just randomly cry, and not even know why. And I can't say I would never claim that I have postpartum depression because of what I feel like postpartum depression is. I don't think that's necessarily what I was experiencing. I definitely don't want to take away from people who truly have experienced postpartum depression, but I definitely experienced the sadness to the point where I didn't have a girlfriend who I felt like I could talk about this. And my best friend and I were literally pregnant at the same time. We had babies 20 days apart. So she was going through, I didn't want to put that burden on her either because she might have been sad too. So I don't want to, bring more sadness to your doorstep and you're going through whatever you're going through. I didn't have the best relationship with my mother at the time, so I couldn't talk to her about it. I felt like my husband didn't even notice that I was in the closet crying. So I didn't want to, talk to him about it. So it was literally like I had to find a third party to have these conversations with. And so that was one thing. Therapy was one thing. I would literally have a Coachella blanket, like an outdoor blanket in the back of my car, and I would go sit in the park. And that was a luxury. And let me not even say it like it was not a luxury because some women can't even leave their house, right? So I was blessed to have help where I could like just go sit in the park, but I had to find me time during that period. And so sometimes it was sitting in the park, sometimes it was strolling through the aisles of Target. This was, back when Target was cool. So it was like I had to find something that could just take my mind off of the mother box because, to your point, that literally accidentally becomes your life. And I don't think that it necessarily should take over your entire identity. But when you are fresh out of the delivery room, it is your whole identity. And I think that if we don't realize that and have conversations about that and just accept that as your reality, that's when you'll start regretting your decision or start having negative, feelings towards your baby. And I never wanted that to be the case. So I was willing to figure out my own ish so that that did not pour, into my parenting, of my child. So I am really big on self care, whatever that looks like for you, whether that is, taking time to just step outside and read a book or get some fresh air or put your feet in the grass or whatever you can do, you have to find time to be able to do that. And then I think also, um, aside from just what I did, just advice for other new moms, not feeling like you're weak if you're going through something. Um, for the basic blacks, I know you got a little spice in your blackness, breed, but for the basic blacks over here who don't really have that much culture, we don't have tradition, we don't have grandmas and mothers that are like nurturing us and holding us through this process of becoming mothers. We also grew up believing that we had to be the strong black woman, and if we can't figure it out, something is wrong with us. I think we have to like lay down that superhero cape because I went to war delivering my baby, like physically, mentally, spiritually. That process, I truly went to war to bring that child into this world in a healthy way, in the best way that I possibly could, and that takes recovery. I just saw some posts online, and I had a C-section, which I did not intend on having, but the recovery, I saw somebody talking about the fact that C-section moms, we don't get physical therapy, we don't get any type of follow-up support. But if you go and like get ACL surgery, they're gonna give you physical therapy for X number of months. They're gonna give you all of this support, and it's like you just cut open my whole stomach, stapled me back together, and sent me home with a baby to care for and zero support. Like that is truly insane. Now, I don't know what we can do. I don't know what the solution is for that, but we don't often have a support system, and we don't even usually feel like we have a safe place to be able to share what we are experiencing and what we are going through. So whoever you can find, Bree, you are so blessed to have a sister, that you can share things with. Whoever you can find, you have to be willing to lean on that person because it's lonely when you're trying to keep it all together and keep it to yourself.
Ooh, that's a bar. Oh, oh, see, now you got me scared. No, I'm
No,
kidding.
I'm like, I'm sorry, Bree. I'm sorry. This ain't for you. This for all the other people. This for all the other people. I'm
No,
sorry.
but I think it's like you said, it's like there's not, again, like we live in the US where we're the best country in the world. But when we look at these systems and we look at what's put in place, we aren't. And it's like I have a friend of mine who she lives in Switzerland, and she was telling me for her maternity leave, her and her husband got paid maternity and paternal leave for 6 months. For him 6 months, and I think for her 9 months.
The
And she's like,
dream.
yeah, we their bill was under $100. The baby was premature. What they had massages every day at the hospital. And I'm like, I need to move, and it's just, but like you said, it's so sad that we don't have that support. And then there's a lot of people who don't know who they can reach, like who they can talk to, who they can share. And oftentimes it looks like, especially when we're the strong black woman, they don't see our weakness. I say it all the time. I was like, my husband's so used to me being strong that he don't see when I'm weak, and but it's a lot of our stories where because we're always that strong person, it's hard for someone to recognize when you are feeling weak because our strong face could look like our weak face, and sometimes when we're struggling, we don't know who we can lean on or who we can share these stories with or who we can actually be vulnerable with. Like, I don't know why I'm feeling this way or why I'm crying, but this is what I'm going through. And I don't know what I need, but I need something, and I think that one, thank you for being so transparent and being so honest. I know one thing about you, you've always been that vulnerable, honest, you won't keep it real, and I love that so much about you. So going through this process of having your firstborn, your firstborn, what was that? What did that look like going back into your business? Like, when did you know that you were ready to get back into the workforce and get back into your businesses? Or what did that transition for your businesses look like when you were ready to move forward with that?
So I was ready to get back into business right away. That is, again, I think a part of my personality. Before becoming a mother, my laptop was with me everywhere I went. Like, I was always on business. I had an online business, so we were never closed. I was always answering an email. I was always posting. I was always sending emails. I was always doing whatever needed to be done. And that was just natural for me. And people would be like, well, you need to take a break and, that'll help, that'll alleviate stress. And I'm like, that actually stresses me out. Like, thinking about the things that are not getting done will stress me out more than just getting them done. So I was not looking forward to maternity leave. That was a conversation that me and my husband had to have, because it's like, how long do you think I'm going to be sitting around doing nothing? And I can have my laptop in the bed with me. That's what I always say. Like, I could just have my laptop. Yeah, I'll relax, but my laptop can be there. I can still, working was relaxing for me. So I don't know that I truly took a maternity leave. Like, I maybe didn't show up on social media in the way that I was accustomed to, but I was definitely still working behind the scenes. I think that it stressed me out more, the thought of somebody else running my business and like not doing it the way that I wanted it done. That was more stressful than me just doing it myself. So I can't say, I mean, I might have took 2 weeks off, truly, and again, I was still answering emails, I was still doing the things, but in terms of like going into my community and doing things, it might have been 2 weeks. I was eager to get back to work because my mind was just thinking about not necessarily the money that I was missing out on, but just the things that needed to be done if I was gone. So I don't know that I was ever not ready to get back to work. I will say though, one of the biggest mistakes that I still beat myself up about in business, one of the worst investments that I ever made, that I feel like just set me down a path of destruction, was feeling like I had to catch back up. And again, I mentioned earlier, I had, several friends and, acquaintances who were men, entrepreneurs at the time, and just seeing the way their businesses were growing and booming while I felt like I was sitting down doing nothing, even though I wasn't truly doing nothing, but I couldn't show up. I couldn't go out. I couldn't speak at events. I couldn't do those things anymore, or not in the way that I wanted to. I made a very bad decision trying to catch up to what they had going on. And I know my intention was not right. Like, I know for sure that I invested money in this mentorship coaching program because I wanted to catch back up with the people who seemingly were doing all the things that I knew I should be doing. And so one of the biggest lessons that I had to learn was not, and I feel like I knew this, but I had to learn it the hard way, was just understanding that my journey is my journey, and I can't force it to look like somebody else's. I can't, you know, try to make myself fit into this role that was never created for me. And baby, when I tell you I learned that lesson the hard way, I learned it the hard way. So I definitely think that for everybody, whether you work a 9 to 5 or you are an entrepreneur, just giving yourself grace and going at your own pace, I think was my biggest lesson learned, and not trying to run the same race as the people who never had to sit down. Because I had to sit down on the sideline for a minute, and then I really tried to get back in that race and catch up, and I couldn't catch up, and I beat myself up because I could not produce the results that other people were producing, not realizing that in this season, and this is hindsight being 2020, but I realized that I had to slow down. I had to lose some things. I had to pivot, because if I would not have, there's no way I would be able to mother in the capacity that I mother. There's no way that I would have been able to prioritize my children in the way that I do. And I'm so grateful that I am truly able to prioritize being a mother, and I'm not just chasing money like I was at one point, but I didn't know how to let that go. So yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but I struggled a
You
little bit with that.
you did. So after your first, you transitioned, and now you decide to have another one. What did you take from your
Decide.
first? What did you take from your first experience going into the second experience in terms of the business and how you were ready to still show up for your businesses?
I was still in the midst of learning that very hard lesson. My son was 15 months when I got pregnant with my second baby. I have not had a planned pregnancy yet. I don't know the joys of being able to try to get pregnant. So let's just say that. But I also feel like if I had to be planning these pregnancies, who knows? I'd be
Right.
50 before I had kids. So I also feel blessed that I have just naturally gotten pregnant and not, had a plan or whatever. But I feel like I took the pressure off of myself in all aspects with my second pregnancy because it was such a shit show with that first one. And I was trying to be in charge and control. I wanted to dictate everything. I wanted everything to be perfect the way that I said it was going to be. And it did not happen that way. I completely released control of the entire process, like the pregnancy process, as well as like my business. I think I was much more in a season of like going with the flow. I honestly, I feel like, let's see, that was 2023. I feel like by 2023, 2022, when I got pregnant for the second time, I feel like I had kind of decided that entrepreneurship in that way it just wasn't for me in this season because with a toddler and another baby on the way, like there's no way that I could be taping live podcasts every single week and going out and doing speaking. Like it just wasn't feasible anymore. It did not make sense. And so I didn't necessarily give up on entrepreneurship, but I had just accepted the fact that it had to look different for me, it was a tough pill to swallow, but just it didn't make sense anymore. And so I think being more flexible is something that I kind of took into my second pregnancy. I can't say that I planned any better my second pregnancy than I did the first in terms of like maternity leave because that is just I haven't mastered that yet, and I'm on my third pregnancy as an entrepreneur. I have not mastered properly planning for maternity leave, especially in this economic climate that we're in. Most of us don't just have money just sitting to the side that we can just like count on to really sit back and not have to work. Not that everybody's living paycheck to paycheck, but we're living project to project, contract to contract, deal to deal, booking to booking. Like we're still a lot of us, not speaking for everybody, but we're still kind of chasing that next paycheck, and we don't have the luxury of just sitting back like I got 12 months worth of income sitting to the side so I can just relax. I was not at that place then, and I'm still not at that place now. So as much as I could, I gave myself grace in terms of realizing the bad decisions that I made the first time around, trying to catch back up and kind of just decided, not it is what it is, but it's going to be whatever God decides that it's going to be. And I cannot make it happen because forcing it is where I effed it up.
That's beautiful. And I think that's the honest part right there, where sometimes like we put so much pressure. Like I know I was talking to my therapist and she's like, so you're doing a lot. And I was like, girl, I got to. I was like, I'm on a time crunch right now. But it's one of those like I'm similar to you. I can't sit still. I can't sit down. And it's like I need to, especially hearing all these stories, it's like, what is the best way that I can prepare or what can I do while I still have my independence fully, solely for the next couple of weeks, right? And it's like, but I think it's one of those things where it's like how to not put that pressure, but also trust the process and enjoy the process and know that God's got it. Like at the end of the day, God's got our back. He put us in this season for a reason. He put us he blessed us to become mothers in this season. So he's not going to set us up for failure, right? So it's like also trusting that process and being okay with like, I don't need to be in control of everything. And that's my thing where it's like, I want to control as much as I can control. I want to be able to control this, and that. But and even now, like with my pregnancy, everyone's like, "So what type of delivery are you doing?" And all these things. I was like, "I'm gonna let my body decide." Like I'm trusting my doctor. Got a black woman. I'm trusting that whole process of letting my body decide what it's going to do and how it's going to recover, and trusting that process, and just praying and hoping that it's going to look a certain way, but being okay with if it doesn't look that way. And I think that taking that pressure off of ourselves, and like you said, I'm still looking at my peers like, all right, y'all got this going on, and I'm like, I got this amount of weeks. How much time do I have to actually put this into play, or put this motion into play, or put these projects into play? And like you said, trusting your team to do something, knowing it may not be done the way that you're going to want it to be done, although it will get done, and being okay with like letting go, trusting. And that part right there is hard. And especially I feel like as entrepreneurs, we don't talk about how hard that is to just give freely and to trust. Even I trust my team, but I don't trust my team because it's like if I have to go MIA for a month, and do I know that everything's going to move the way that I want to move? And if I come back into my studio, is it going to look the way and be organized the way, or is shit going to hit the fan while I'm gone? You know, and I think that's the thing where we don't talk about that, and it's scary. Like it's very, I'm not lying. I'm like it's scary to me thinking about that. But hearing your story and hearing that it's okay to just like just trust it. Like it's gonna do what it's gonna do.
Because you'll drive yourself crazy. At the end of the day, you will literally go crazy trying to be in control of everything. And so you have to take your hands off the wheel at some point and be like, okay, God, you trusted me to do this. I'm going to trust you to take care of the rest.
Right. So before I let you go, I have a couple more questions. So now that you're going into your third, but this wasn't planned either. I
No,
know you want. I know you didn't want a third one.
I'm turning 40, first of all. I'm having a baby for my 40th birthday. And so Kendrick always says, like, you are a master manifester because I said, okay, God, I'm turning 40 this year. You know, like, if I'm going to have another baby, I want to have a baby before I turn 40. And so here I
See,
am. It's not before, but it's like,
so that's
that's,
it's your fault.
it is my fault. I probably spoke it up. I wasn't, this third pregnancy, I honestly felt the best that I felt, of all the three, because I wasn't as disappointed with the second baby. It was just like, oh, okay, God, I guess that wasn't a mistake. You really want me to be a mom. Like, that's what I thought with the second baby. But this one, I was like excited, and I hadn't felt the excitement before. But no, this was not planned. No.
So, but what? So what made it different for you to feel excited this go round?
So I felt like I felt like this was just such a spiritual, which all pregnancies are spiritual. But I felt like this was such a spiritual pregnancy for me. Like the day before I took a pregnancy test, I felt like spirit, I was about to start this fast. Or this detox. I was about to do this detox, and literally, spirit said, "Read the back of the box." So I went to read the back of the box, and it said, like, not safe for pregnancy. And so I'm like, what the hell? So the next day, I took a pregnancy test. I just randomly took a pregnancy test, found out that I was pregnant. And the moment I found out I was pregnant, I knew that I was having a girl. And and again, knowing in the sense of like spirit, had dropped that in that this was my girl. And I have been, everybody who knows me knows I talk about having mommy issues, like the challenges that I have with my mother. The relationship just has never been what I, want it to be. And I've been doing the work. I have been doing the hard work, the ugly, like I have been doing the therapy, the spiritual work. I've been doing it all to work on myself, which is all that I can change in my mother-daughter relationship. Like I have truly been doing the work, and I felt in my spirit that this baby girl was proof that I had done the work, because for years it's like I wanted a girl, but I was scared to have a girl because then the pressure is on me to be the mother that I didn't have, to be what I wanted my mother to be, and I didn't know that I could do that. And so I felt like getting pregnant with a girl, even way before I really found out that it was a girl, I felt like it was confirmation that I had done what needed to be done to heal that. Because in doing my work, I realized it's not just me and my mom. It was my mom and her mom. It was my mom and her sisters. It was my mom's mom and her mom. This was like generational. And so I really truly felt like the work that I had been putting in was bigger than me. It was truly to heal, this generational thing that we've been experiencing, and just kind of feeling like, well, this is our reality. This is what we have to deal with. And so this pregnancy was different because I felt like you a bad bee. Like you did that. Like that is was so it was so hard, Bree. Like it was I told you I'm an avoider. So I will just sweep it under the rug and try to go on about my business. But I faced it. Like when people talk about the shadow work and like doing that, I really did it. And I went through all the emotions, and I did all of the things. And so I felt excited because I felt like you know, I had crossed over to, the side to where it's like, okay, you can do this. Like you were born for this, and you did it. So I felt like, bitch, you ain't telling me nothing. All excited about this baby. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. So, how has your businesses pivoted now that you're about to be a mother of three? Because I know, again, like you were doing a lot back then, and now you simplified it. You've been able to simplify what it is that you offer and what services that you offer. So, how was that transition for you?
I definitely went through a period of feeling like business was not for me, entrepreneurship was not for me. I got burned a couple times over the last like 2 years, to the point where I again took a step back and was like, okay, I got to regroup and figure out what does God want me to do? Because I'm over here spinning my wheels trying to do what I want to do, and it is not working out. So let me just go back to the drawing board. And I feel like what I have landed on are longer term opportunities. So really legacy is really big, for me and my husband. And so getting into real estate was a part of like legacy planning, a wealth building kind of strategy. That's like a long-term play. It's not something that, is paying me today, but it's something that I'm building to be able to bring my children into and to be able to pass down, to my kids. And so that was a part of it. That's not necessarily something that I can do passively, but I'm building a part of the real estate business that will allow me to create passive income. And then I got back into travel. So I owned a travel business for several years. I sold it in 2020, and I got back into it because it is a business that I can do passively. I can do it from anywhere in the world as long as I have Wi-Fi. And it allows me to teach, which is what I truly love. And so I've set it up in such a way that the certification course that I offer is on autopilot now, so people can literally just log on and register, enroll, and complete the course at their own pace. And so that is kind of my maternity leave plan, and that's also the way that I'm able to still fulfill myself as an entrepreneur because I try to get away from it, but I do love entrepreneurship, but not take away from my kids, which is super important. And again, I think that maturity was me realizing that I cannot do business the way that I was doing business and be the mom that I know that I want to be. I can't be no watered down mama. Like I can't do that. That's just not gonna sit right with my spirit. And so I feel like God had to, reshuffle my cards so that I could do both. And so, travel and real estate will allow me to do both. So taking not a back seat, not putting business on a back seat, but creating businesses that I don't have to like show up and be the face of, which is what I've done for so long.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, to wrap this up, I know that you just talked about your travel business. So, can you tell us a little bit more of how can someone get into or learn more about the travel business and your travel courses that you offer?
Yes. So Elevate Travel Co. We are a full service travel agency. So we offer full service travel planning. So if you are, planning a trip, planning a retreat for your business, we can definitely assist with that. But then we also have a travel agent certification so that if you love to travel, you can turn that love for travel into a business. And so we have a self-paced certification course. So if you have 6 hours to sit down and do it all in one day, you can get certified in one day. If you want to spread it out and do, 1 hour a week, you can get certified in 6 weeks, but we've created it so that you can take it on your own time, on your own schedule. You get your certificate of completion when you are done. And then we have a host agency where we have over 25 agents that currently work with us to serve their customers and build their own travel businesses. And so I've been an entrepreneur for more than a decade. And the foundation of all that I do, aside from it being education based, is it's empowerment based. I'm always, always, always excited for opportunities where I can share information that can help people create income. So if you are interested in turning your love for travel into a paycheck, elevatetravel.com, and it's ELLEVATE travel.com is where you can learn more. But we are always excited to welcome new people into our program.
Awesome, awesome. And just one closing remark. Can you just give some quick advice to any pregnant woman or pregnant entrepreneur about to go into this journey? What is one advice that you would give them?
Ooh, don't try to run your baby like you run your business. Because these babies are not going to do what you want them to do. Their timeline don't look nothing like yours. Their reality is not yours. And when we try to run our household the way we run a business, we end up being disappointed. So my biggest takeaway, that would be one piece of advice. And then also embracing the mother in you, not trying to live up to the TikTok moms, not trying to be the mom that you see your friend being, like being okay with your version of motherhood and knowing that what you have in you to be a mother is exactly what your baby needs. Nothing else nothing else outside of what you have to give because God chose you for a reason.
Awesome, awesome. Well, Koereyelle, thank you so much for this beautiful, honest conversation. I cannot wait. I'm happy we're both having October babies. We're both having October girls. So we gotta we gotta plan our dates. But thank you again so much for sharing your story, for being honest, for being vulnerable. And I know I learned a lot in this. I know that a lot of women are going to be able to take something away from this. So again, thank you for joining us on the Baby Bump and Business podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you, Bree.
Thank you.